Well, we are in a magical and beautiful place in the middle of the countryside of West Feliciana Parish. It's a place called Hemingbough, and they have peacocks, beautiful gardens, a gorgeous lake, and so much more.
Oh, Tammy, I love the peacocks, and one of them has taken a liking to my Harley. But more about that later. This week, L.A. Ryder has taken to the hills of West Feliciana Parish, and in particular, the St. Francisville area, for a little rest, relaxation, and of course, great motorcycle riding. A beautiful day on U.S. Highway 61, one of my favorite rides. This four-lane federal highway has many names. It's part of the Great River Road Corridor, and it's sometimes called the Blues Highway because it runs right through the Mississippi Delta, birthplace of the blues. Highway 61 played a major role in spreading this great American musical art form all the way from New Orleans to Chicago. But our ride today would not be nearly that long, just 30 miles or so north of Baton Rouge to the very outskirts of St. Francisville and a place called Hemingbough.
Hello and welcome to Hemingbough. I've been looking forward to this very much. So how are you?
Good.
So good to see you.
What a beautiful ride up here.
Well, thank you. I really look forward to showing you and your viewers Hemingbough, which is a very, very special place.
Well, I could see that just from driving in.
All right. Well,
Thank you
so much. And it's so wonderful to have you all here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can't wait. Yeah. Let's get started.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, thank you. It feels so good to be here. It's a God thing.
Perhaps no person has done more to preserve Louisiana's antebellum past than Arlen Dees. And to fully appreciate Hemingbough, his crowning creation, you have to know a little bit about his own past. It all began with the Myrtles plantation in St. Francisville. In 1972, the Myrtles was in disrepair and abandoned. The building and its contents were being sold at a sheriff's sale. Dees, who at the time was a prominent Baton Rouge antiques dealer, knew the old house was full of antiques.
The furnishings, a lot of the original furnishings that were in the Myrtles was basically worth more than the house was. The 10 acres, the house, the grounds, and so that was the motivation to buy the house to get the furnishings.
Arlen's plan was simple: buy the home, sell off the antiques, then demolish the old house and salvage the building materials. But after buying the house, he decided it was too beautiful to demolish. So instead of tearing it down, he restored it to its original splendor, and thus began a new career in historic preservation, flipping houses on a grand and glorious scale.
In the early 70s in Louisiana, there were many historic plantation homes in incredible disrepair.
For the next several years, Dees restored a number of historic properties, including Mount Hope in Baton Rouge and Millbank in Jackson, Louisiana. Then in 1980, he received a call from Odessa Owen, owner of a 64-room mansion in White Castle, Louisiana, called Nottoway. Dees says Miss Odessa had a reputation for chasing people off her property with a shotgun, so he didn't know what to expect when she asked him to come calling.
Mrs. Owen had read the paper about the other restorations, and so we just fell in love with each other. She didn't have a son or any children, and so she sort of adopted me.
Dees ended up buying Nottoway and using 60-man crews working 12 hours a day, restored it in just 3 months.
And when we opened the door, the first day of Nottoway, we had 710 people on a Saturday to tour the river road that faces, the house faces the river. They had to block it off. The sheriff came and said, we have no place, we have so many people.
Dees operated Nottoway for several years, but then one day a wealthy Australian tourist paid a visit and decided he had to have Nottoway for himself.
I sold Nottoway for an enormous sum of money. I was very humbled, and I simply asked God, what would you have me to do with this money? And as clearly as you and I are speaking, God spoke to my heart, my mind, and said, with this enormous sum of money, provide a place that anyone and everyone can come as they need it to experience my unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness.
Shortly after the sale of Nottoway, Arlen acquired a large tract of land just outside St. Francisville. Bikini Beach, which is what it was originally called, was a popular teen hangout and later a campground. But to Arlen Dees, it was a blank canvas.
90% of the people that have been to Bikini Beach and come back don't realize that this is where Bikini Beach was.
Arlen turned the old swimming pool into a reflecting pond and next to the lake constructed an outdoor amphitheater. The acoustics here are so perfect you can hear a pin drop at center stage. A large ballroom and meeting facility was also constructed, and a 10-room guest house was added nearby, providing overnight accommodations. Also added were beautiful gardens, walking paths, and dozens of statues throughout. One of the remarkable things about Hemingbough is that everything here looks like it has been here forever. This Greek Revival building looks centuries old, but it was actually built as a backdrop for outdoor symphony concerts a few years back. Arlen likes to joke that he is actually the oldest thing at Hemingbough. And that was indeed true until this chapel was added a little over a year ago.
The bones of it is 1903. It was built as a post office. Solid, original floors and ceilings and all. Of course, we have done a total renovation. It doesn't really look like the post office, but that wasn't the intent.
It's very difficult to put Hemingbough into a single category. Reception hall, wedding venue, concert location, retreat center. It serves many purposes, but none greater than what Arlen Dees originally intended, a place where all can come to enjoy the beauty of God's creation.
Well, Hemingbough is the perfect place to stay when visiting the Felicianas, and there's so much to see and do in this area, you're probably going to want to stay several days.
That's so true, Tammy. There are old homes, churches to explore, shops and antique stores, great roads to ride, and of course some incredible restaurants featuring everything from road food to fine dining.
It's just a short ride from Hemingbough to St. Francisville, and it's definitely a ride you'll want to take. You'll find plenty to see and do in this historic West Feliciana Parish town of 1700. St. Francisville was established in 1809, and many of the original homes and historic structures still exist. St. Francisville was once referred to as the town 2 miles long and 2 yards wide because it sits on top of a natural bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. One of the state's oldest Protestant churches is located in St. Francisville. Grace Episcopal Church was established in 1827. The current building was constructed in 1860 and was heavily damaged by Union gunboats during the Civil War's siege of Port Hudson. The cemetery features a number of historical graves, including that of Union gunboat captain John Hart, who died during that battle. Union and Confederate forces arranged a truce so that Hart's body could be brought ashore and given a Masonic burial. Officers from both sides took part in the ceremonies. Today it's referred to as the day the war stopped and is reenacted each year. After taking in the sights, you may want to do a little shopping. TW and I certainly did. There are dozens of great shops downtown featuring clothing, antiques, and lots of other stuff you just can't live without. What's that? I always want two things, to lose weight and to eat. And that is why I am who I am. The area features nearly a dozen antebellum homes and plantations, including Rosetown, which is considered one of the most documented and intact plantation complexes in the South. In town, of course, is the Myrtles, which features ghost tours, a bed and breakfast, and a first-class restaurant. Speaking of food, there is no shortage of good food in and around St. Francisville. Downtown, you will find places like the Birdman, which is where all the locals go for breakfast, and the Magnolia Cafe, which features lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Meanwhile, the 3V tourist courts at Magnolia Cafe offer overnight accommodations, 1940s style.
I can't even explain how happy I am that this wine menu lights up.
TW fell in love with the cocktail menu and small plates at the Saint inside the St. Francisville Inn. This boutique hotel in the historic district features 11 beautifully decorated guest rooms. One of St. Francisville's most popular restaurants is The Francis, which features indoor and outdoor dining and is a weekend destination for many tourists and motorcyclists. But one of our favorite places to eat is north of St. Francisville on U.S. Highway 61. With a name like south of the border, you might think this is a Mexican restaurant. It's not. In this case, the name refers to the fact that this old roadhouse and supper club is just south of the Louisiana-Mississippi line. Back in the 1940s, when Mississippi was dry and didn't serve alcohol, this was the place to be on a Friday or Saturday night, complete with gambling, dancing, and great food. Today the gambling is gone, and they only have dances here for special occasions, but they still serve great food. The menu features everything from fried chicken and hamburgers to ribeyes and pasta. They also have an outstanding selection of seafood, including shrimp, catfish, and crab cakes. But first, you have to try the onion rings. Perfectly fried in a delicate batter, they literally melt in your mouth. And nearly everything on the menu goes better with something they called Nema sauce, a blend of heavy cream, a little cheese, and crawfish too. It was the perfect addition to my fried fish, waffle-style sweet potatoes, and lima beans. Top it all off with their homemade bread pudding, which TW did a good job of hogging all to herself, and you have a great dining experience in a relaxed and friendly atmosphere. Well, it's just a short ride from St. Francisville to Woodville, Mississippi, and there are some great roads and interesting things to see along the way.
Yes, before Tammy arrived yesterday, I had a little time on my hands, so I headed to Woodville via LA 66, known as the Angola Road. Louisiana Highway 66, also known as the Tunica Trace or the Angola Road, runs from US 61 just north of St. Francisville to where it dead ends at the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. The road is well maintained since it's the only road to the prison, and it's usually light on traffic, except for shift changes at Angola. But today, I wasn't riding to the prison. About halfway up LA 66, I took a ride onto LA 969, also known as the Pinckneyville Road, and crossed over the Mississippi line. This is a great country road, perfect for riding as it twists and turns through the rural countryside. It's what I call the back way to Woodville. I was headed to Woodville at the invitation of Arlen Dees. While Dees has done many things over the years, like save and restore historic properties and create retreats like Hemingbough, he's still an antique dealer at heart, and Arlen wanted to show me his latest endeavor, Showroom Antiques, a 14,000 square foot air-conditioned mall filled with high-quality antiques and collectibles from dozens of dealers, including Dees himself. Arlen says the wonderful thing about historic pieces is that you really don't need a house full of them. One or two items can dramatically impact the feel of a room or an entire home.
You don't have to have an entire house filled with antiques. You may just choose one piece that's your accent piece, and everything around that room can be built around that.
By the way, don't worry if you're on a motorcycle and don't have a lot of cargo space. There's a large selection of smaller items that will fit nicely in your saddlebags. As for me, no problem. I live less than an hour away. I'll be back in the El Camino.
You know, there really are more stories here than there's time to tell them.
Yes, but we have stockpiled a few and saved some others for a future trip.
And then there is Hemingbough. You know, this place, it's really hard to describe how beautiful and peaceful it is.
Yes, Arlen Dees has restored and saved a lot of historic homes and properties, from the Myrtles to Nottoway. But this one he created out of his own heart and soul.
A wondrous and beautiful place, which, by the way, it is always open, and there's not a charge to tour these beautiful grounds.
Come visit, and we suggest you stay a while. Overnight accommodations are available at the guest house and a number of beautiful cabins, too.
Well, that's it for now, but we will be back. And you know what we always say, we haven't been everywhere,
But it's on our list. See you next week on LA Rider.
Let's go catch that sunset.
Good idea.
LA Rider is brought to you by the Motorcycle Awareness Campaign, a 501c3 nonprofit organization exclusively dedicated to promoting motorcycle awareness and rider safety throughout Louisiana and the nation. Learn more at macorg.com.
God bless chrome cowgirls like us.